the reasonable belief.
Prosecutor Sim Gill, Bernardo Palacios Carbajal was shot at least a dozen times when he stopped to pick up a gun he'd dropped. The dead man's family says they will sue. In Tucson, a prosecutor has decided that police used a justifiable amount of force to subdue a man who was resisting arrest. Damian Alvarado told officers he couldn't breathe, but died. The death, which happened in late March, now just being made public. America is listening to Fox News.
Grab and win up to $500 with Budweiser from now until July. Pick up Bud Family and Limerita Family 12-packs, fill out the entry form inside, and place it in the drop box for your chance to win up to $500. Budweiser will be drawing winners weekly, so head to Current Guam on Facebook or Instagram to see if you're a lucky winner. Must be 21 to participate. See currentguam.com for rules, drop box locations, and more info. Budweiser reminds you to please drink responsibly.
Fire up the grill this Liberation Day, because 76 Circle K is giving away a brand new freezer full of meats valued at over $700 to 3 lucky winners. All you got to do is purchase $25 or more of 76 fuel and you're entered to win. Fuel up now at 76 Circle K and get your chance to bring home a brand new freezer full of meat. Happy 76 Liberation Day, Guam. Must be 18 years or older to enter. Other conditions may apply. Circle K. Take it easy.
A surge in coronavirus cases continues, especially in Arizona, Texas, and in Florida.
Florida's Department of Health says just about another 9,000 coronavirus tests came back positive yesterday, and that represented a daily positive rate greater than 18%. That's a new high for the surge experienced over the past few weeks. While there are reports of hospitals filling up and some ICUs at or near capacity, the overall hospitalization rate for coronavirus disease fell to 7%. And the rate of death is holding at 2%. In Broward County, Florida, Eben Brown, Fox News.
The defense secretary has told Congress reports of Russia offering Taliban militants bounties to kill American soldiers were not corroborated by defense intelligence. Secretary Mark Esper says his military commanders heard initial reports about the bounties back in January and says while the threats were taken seriously, they have not yet been found credible. A Florida sheriff's deputy finds himself on the wrong side of the law.
Broward County Sheriff's officers arresting one of their own on charges of grand theft, official misconduct, and obtaining property by fraud. According to the BSO's Public Corruption Unit, Detective Luis Silberberg falsified overtime records on at least 7 occasions and lied dozens of times about working full shifts, bilking the department out of more than $15,000 in compensation. Sheriff Gregory Toney says his office must be accountable and transparent at all times.
The only way that happens is when we find circumstances and situations that violate policy, that violate the law, that we take action.
The investigation beginning more than 18 months ago when the FBI asked the sheriff's office to help investigate Silberberg in an unrelated case. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
Attorney Michael Cohen is back behind bars. He'd been confined at home after being furloughed from a federal prison over coronavirus fears, but had been spotted dining at Manhattan restaurants. Furlough revoked. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont or call 646-1463.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña is taking your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair. Mezcla is ready to serve you and your family for your dine-in experience and takeout services. To ensure everyone's safety and comfort, Team Mezcla has taken further steps in maintaining a clean and sanitized area for you and your family while dining in. For more information, please call 479-2652 or 479-2653. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Afternoon, this is Carl from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future. Whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community, our dedicated team in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Let me say that again, Real Joe Cruz. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So here we are, in a good ship, Tall Tales, embarking on another voyage into the seas of the unknown realms of the law, public policy, society, and related subjects. Now fasten your seatbelts. As usual, it's going to be an exciting ride. Let's start out, Real Joe Cruz, with Demi Ikotny. So here we are. Once again, the Daily News does not have a local editorial. The closest they could come was with a dude named William D. Phillips, a 1997 Nobel laureate in physics. And his title of his writing is Sacrificing for the Cure. And he talks about deliberately contracting the Wuhan virus himself, sort of being the subject of his own experiment. Yeah. Okay, and then we turn to the Post, and the Post, let's examine the Post editorial, and the Post editorial says, lack of medical examiner compromises our community's safety. On July 8, Guam Police Department informed the public that a man was killed on Guam. It's GPD's job to tell us such a crime occurred, but what was unusual about this confirmation of a homicide was the lag between the day the victim was found dead and police information that someone had taken the life of this man, Kunai Kiyoshi. He was 29 and had just relocated months prior from Chuuk State in the Federated States. Kiyoshi's body was found May 31 along Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning in an area dotted with commercial buildings. Among the landmarks are a veterinary clinic, real estate office, and small restaurant. Oh, that's really valuable information, isn't it? Yeah, boy. I could sit around and read stories like this all day long. It took the police department 35 days to shift from a death investigation to now a homicide investigation because it was waiting for the autopsy on Kiyoshi. It took the police this long to scour the businesses in the area and ask if they still had a video surveillance recordings more than a month ago that might help offer clues on how Kiyoshi died. The delay stems from the lack of medical examiner to conduct an autopsy. The last time Guam had a medical examiner, a forensic pathologist who can determine if someone died of natural causes or was killed, was more than a year and a half ago. Dr. Aurelio Espinola retired after having served in the position for decades. The government of Guam has difficulty finding a forensic pathologist to find the seat Espinola vacated. The search for Espinola replacement began before he retired. And so far, the search has run into a dead end. Where's that snare drum, Real Joe Cruz?
Which one, sir?
Let me try this. The program starts about 4 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. The last time Guam had a medical examiner, a forensic pathologist who could determine if someone died of natural causes or was killed, was more than a year and a half ago. Dr. Aurelio Espinola retired after serving in the position for decades. The search for his replacement so far has reached a dead end.
I got it, sir, now. I'm awake, sir.
That's good. All right. Part of your job, in fact, an important part of your job, is the ability to laugh at my jokes.
True, sir.
Which is not something that's universal, right?
It's not, sir.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work.
It does.
Years.
Years and years of study, practice.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then when you find one of those plays on words, you can either, how does that sound? Yeah. Or you could also give it the snare drum, which sounds, there you go. Yeah. Okay. Now we're ready to finish up here with the Post editorial. The government of Guam has had difficulty finding a forensic pathologist to fill the seat Espinola vacated. The search for Espinola's replacement began before he retired. One of the reasons for delay, we've been told previously by the government, now, I didn't know the government could tell people things, but was the distance from the U.S. mainland. We've been told medical examiners from the states have not been keen on relocating to Guam. The pay upward of $200,000 hasn't been the main detriment, according to a prior answer from the Guam Attorney General's office. There have been other homicide cases whose victims could not be released to family members in a timely manner because Guam doesn't have a resident medical examiner who could determine a cause of death. Police on Wednesday said the autopsy report states Kiosi died due to a blunt impact to the head, according to GPD. Kiosi moved to Guam in November 2019. On April 1, nearly 2 months before his death, Kiosi was one of 3 men who were arrested and charged in a robbery at the Shell gas station along Chalon, San Antonio. Akidro Setic, 24, and Javik Chutaro, 20, were the other 2 men who were arrested in the robbery case that allegedly involved the use of a knife to threaten the gas station staff. Information on this homicide victim and his circumstances are a matter for the public to know. For 35 days, police weren't sure if there's a killer out there. Now they know, and now we, the public, know. Delays in confirming a homicide are a matter of public interest. We didn't have to wait 35 days to be informed a killer might be out there. This should be another priority for our local government to focus on. But based on the delays, the lack of a medical examiner on Guam has not been that high a priority. You know, maybe if we were thinking about paying him double pay, we could have got, Tina to call an emergency session of the legislature, suspend public hearings, and treat it like an emergency that affects health or safety, right?
You're right, sir, but I don't know if we could afford that. I mean, they do make a lot of money, right?
That's true. That's very true. Real
Are they the highest paid government employee?
Yeah, even
right?
More than the folks out there at the university.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd think that with that kind of high pay, people would be dying to get the job. That's better, Real Joe Cruz. That's better. Okay, let's go from there to the card. And this is what I got on the card today. I've got Troy versus Janela. 53 days since Crystal Paco San Augustine, formerly known as Crystal Paco, issued her pronunciamento excusing Janela from having to make an apology, but telling us that there would never be any more muting or cutting off of reporters in mid-sentence. So it's been 53 days so far. I'm sorry, 54 days. So far, so good. And then we've got Tina versus Emergency. And I keep a countdown on how long we can go without Tina finding something that is so emergent that she'll call a legislature into session and waive public hearing requirements. Well, we've gone 2 days on that one. Yeah. She did it so she could handle James W. Moylan and Joseph S. San Augustine's bills dealing with flipping coins instead of having a primary election. Okay, and then next after that, I've got Luis Muñoz versus unemployment. And it's been 10 days since Luis Muñoz has made a genuine mistake. Now, we read a lot about the unemployment program and the difficulties that people are having. And David Del Ursula, the Director of Labor, telling us, that some people are filing claims and not listing all their income. And this is at least a problem. But Del Ursula didn't say that it's okay if it's a genuine mistake. So perhaps we need to have him sit down with Luis Muñoz to understand the meaning of a genuine mistake. Then we've got James W. Moylan versus the coin toss. And wait a minute, am I missing one here? Ooh, I got the wrong calendar here. Yeah, I'm missing one important item, and I've got Underwood versus Michael San Nicolas and the Post versus Michael San Nicolas. And then after that, I go to Chamorro Self-Determination versus Fear, which took over for Ryan Calvo versus Proteji La Texan after Ryan Calvo canceled himself. The cancel culture has become so strong that you'll find people in public life canceling themselves. Okay, so let's go straight here to Underwood versus Michael San Nicolas. Also, the bout is also titled The Post versus Michael San Nicolas. And I'll tell you why after I go through this story here. And here's the headline. Underwood calls out San Nicolas for not commenting on allegations. Former delegate Robert Underwood, also known as Robert Papadzu, who is vying for another opportunity to represent Guam in Washington, is calling out the current delegate for not speaking on the allegations against him. Calling out. Now, you know what that makes me think of, Real Joe Cruz? It makes me think of Underwood opening the door to his campaign headquarters, standing in the doorway and saying, "Hey, Mike, how about those allegations?" Calling him out, right? Underwood said that to date, including on a morning talk show on Thursday, Delegate Michael San Nicolas has not taken an opportunity to comment directly on the allegations against him. He has some splaining to do, not only on the original allegations, Underwood said. San Nicolas was originally accused by former Chief of Staff John Manuel of having an improper relationship with one of his staffers and accepting excessive campaign contributions. The campaign has given back $9,000 in contributions to Guam businessman Andrew Park. The Federal Election Commission recorded the refund on February 20. Last month, it was announced that an ethics subcommittee would be formed to look at the original allegations plus others that had surfaced, including false statements made to investigators and interfering in a government investigation on the allegations. San Nicolas issued a brief statement saying, quote, "This is just part of the process that we are required to go through in order to disprove the allegations made against us." So once again, I guess Michael San Nicolas's pronouns are we and us, right? Yeah. They want to be called us. "We will continue to cooperate and thank the people for their patience and support during this time." Underwood said the process should take its course, but the issue of additional charges only underscores the need for San Nicolas to speak directly to the people. "Those are new charges. It's not business as usual," Underwood said, adding that it's great that San Nicolas finally came out and finally talked live to the people of Guam in the last 4 or 5 months. "I think that encapsulates the nature of public service. It's not just a political charge. It's really an expectation of public service that people communicate, and not just indirectly through Facebook." A press release from Underwood's campaign also notes that San Nicolas said he was advised not to speak on the issue. Underwood responded, "Are the attorneys his political advisors?" Okay, so that's Underwood versus San Nicolas, right? And it's some really good, strong, earned media for Robert Underwood. Now, the Post doesn't say we tried to contact Michael San Nicolas, or excuse me, the Post doesn't say we reached out to Michael San Nicolas, but he didn't return our call. So we don't know if the Post tried to contact Michael San Nicolas or not.
Maybe they should have reached out to his office, and his office might have...
Yeah, the Post should have reached out to San Nicolas's office,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
And the office might have had something to say about it.
The office might have responded. Very good, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah, so... I think, to me, if I were going to do the same kind of thing, I think, Robert, you need to come out and tell us, if you are elected to Congress, where you're going to be on the separation issue. Are you going to continue to be a separatist? Because that's important to a lot of folks when they decide who they want to send to Washington. Do we want to send a separatist to Washington? But that's just me. That's not the Post. That's not Michael San Nicolas. That's just me. But back to this article in the Post. It's it's several inches of earned media for Robert Underwood. Of course, it's completely favorable to Robert Underwood. There's no rebuttal there for Michael San Nicolas. So I read through it, and I understand everything all the points that are being made here. But I read the story 3 times. You know why I read it 3 times, Real Joe Cruz?
Why, sir?
I wanted to see what the news was.
We were trying to look in there.
Yeah, I don't see any news here. In other words, when you read it, what is it? Is who, when, where, right?
Yes, sir.
There's no who, when, where here. So I read it and I'm saying, what happened here? You know, is there more news from San Nicolas? No. I think the Post let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, in the last page. A press release from Underwood's campaign also notes that San Nicolas said he was advised not to speak on the issue. So here's the news event, okay? This is breaking news. Robert Underwood sent out a press release. That's the news. Is that what news gathering is all about? You take somebody's press release and you run it like a news story. It doesn't say, we received a press release from Robert Underwood. Former delegate Robert Underwood, who was vying for another opportunity to represent Guam in Washington, is calling out the current delegate for not speaking on the allegations against him. In other words, this is a hit piece because there is no who, when, where, what, any of that. The only what is that Robert sent out a press release. You can't fault him for that. That's what politicians do. He's trying to get as much earned media as he possibly can. But why does the Post just roll over and run Robert's press release as though it's hard news? I'm really disappointed. I've held the Post in such high regard, and I've taken many opportunities on this program to say how much I appreciate their approach to journalism. But this isn't journalism. This is basically propaganda. It's pro-Robert Underwood propaganda. So from now on, I'm going to have to, if my eye starts to look yellow, Real Joe Cruz.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's because every time I read a story in the Guam Daily Post about Robert Underwood and Michael San Nicolas, I'll be looking at that story with a jaundiced eye.
I see.
Yeah, this was not good at all. Very bad. In fact, I'm going to grade you here, Post. You got an F on this story. All right. Next, we've got Jim W. versus a coin toss. And I talked a little bit about this yesterday. But is it Monday or Tuesday? There's going to be a public hearing. I think Tuesday, right? Yeah. And I said, I'm tempted to go down and testify, but I forgot. We don't have public hearings anymore. We have this electronic waste of time. So if I could actually go to a public hearing and look a half dozen senators in the eye and tell them what I think about this this boondoggle here, I would. But the whole idea of testifying loses its impact if you got to do it like what I'm doing right now. For all our international radio listening audience, I know you know how powerful the dialogue is on this program and how persuasive the host is and how good he is at ramming home a point. But what you're seeing on your screen, if you're watching on Facebook, is a mere shadow of the real thing in a live presentation. Yeah, so I'm going to take a short break here and remind myself how proud I am of my humility, and then we'll be right back.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! That's just what we did with our new state-of-the-art mobile banking app as we celebrate 66 years of serving our island communities. It's loaded with a ton of new user-friendly features, including remote deposit capture. It's another way of saying you don't have to come to the bank to go to the bank. And if you want to come to the bank, we're happy to see your smiling face as long as you're wearing a mask. And we don't have long lines. Bank Pacific grows but branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
So I just finished expressing my great displeasure with the Guam Daily Post and how they handled, how they appear to be an appendage of the Robert Underwood campaign. And I'm going to give our Carl a chance to come on the air and defend the Guam Daily Post. So go for it, our Carl.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob.
That isn't what I was looking for.
I'm not going to defend the Guam Daily Post.
Oh.
Much as I
nor will I.
Much as I normally like their editorial content, that's a disappointment. As I've mentioned in times past, I have tended to vote Republican. As I've gotten older, I've become more cynical, and the number of Republicans I voted for has dropped. The last election, I only voted for 5. This next election, I may only vote for 1 or 2 incumbents. But I did vote for Michael St. Nicholas, despite the fact that he's in what I would normally consider the opposing camp. But he is such a contrarian, and he does things that are so politically incorrect sometimes that I have come to notice him and appreciate his stances. Although I don't always agree, but usually I do. But, yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. Yeah, what is being done to him, I think, is clearly as you mentioned, he is being... comes across as a hit piece, and to me, he's being targeted by the establishment because of his lack of ability to jump when the party bosses say jump. And I've said before, and I still believe that if he was a team player and jumped when the party bosses said jump, this would never have been brought up. The establishment protects its own, and he has clearly taken himself outside of the establishment. At least he's saying the right things to position himself in that way. And yeah, it's disappointing that the Guam Daily Post hasn't been more. I'm trying to think of the right word.
Journalistic.
Yeah, journalistic. That's a good word.
Yeah.
In the presentation of...
Now, if there had been a public forum somewhere and Underwood had said the same things that appeared in that news article, then the article would start out at a public forum held on the 19th floor of the Pac Star last night. Robert Underwood, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Or if Robert had gone to a public hearing or anything, but to just start out, Robert Underwood said this about Michael St. Nicholas, and then in the penultimate paragraph, say, oh, by the way, and here's something he said in a press release. That is not journalism. It's not even close.
Yeah, especially for a press release. It just conveys the idea that they're just being a purveyor of whatever is being put out by Robert Underwood, or for that matter, if it was put out by someone on the other side. We kind of expect some thought and being able to put across, as they're presenting these comments to the reader, things that they need to bear in mind, that aren't immediately.
One of the things that goes into newspaper ethics is what's called the gatekeeper function. In other words, the editor of the newspaper has to decide what goes in the paper and what doesn't go in the paper. And what goes into the paper, you start out, not talking about the editorial the editorial content, but talking about news. First of all, it's got to be news. And the only news The only way they could have written that as a news story is say Robert Underwood sent us a press release, and here's what it says. But, of course, no editor would ever run anything like that, so they had to just kind of smooth over that, hoping that nobody would notice. My bad.
Yeah, and what Robert Underwood is pointing out is not really that big of a deal. Congressman St. Nicholas has already said pretty much all he can say. I mean, what's he going to do? Admit that something happened? Of course he's going to deny it, and he's already done that. And he said the investigation is going to go on. It's going to come to a conclusion, and it's going to have to play out. And, we believe it will play out in our favor. End of story. I mean, what is he supposed to do? Just endlessly say basically the same thing, only, arrange the sentences in a different order?
Good point,
He said
yeah.
pretty much all he can say.
Yeah, but of course, the more people talk about it, the worse it is for Michael St. Nicholas. So the fact, if you're advising Robert Underwood, you can't be a lawyer if you're advising Robert Underwood. But if you're advising Robert Underwood, the advice would be keep talking about Michael St. Nicholas's ethical problems in Congress. You don't have to say anything. Just keep mentioning it, and people, it'll have top of the mind awareness in the minds of voters, and they're going to be thinking about it. And they're, of course, the way human nature is, they're going to use their smoke detector and say, where there's smoke, there's fire. And it does put St. Nicholas in an awkward position. Comes out and he says it's not true. I didn't do anything wrong. The process will run on, but there's no pizzazz in that. There's no snap.
Yeah, so that's absolutely true. Is that he's, Robert Underwood is pretty much doing what Robert Underwood should do, as a politician. That's why one reason why in the story I found it ironic that one of his comments was that Michael St. Nicholas can't just ignore this and have it go on business as usual. But of course, what we're seeing is an illustration of politics as usual. So I just found that a little ironic. Anyway, thank you for allowing me to chime in and offer some kind of defense of Michael St. Nicholas. I appreciate it. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, Carl.
All right. Bye.
Our Carl weighing in on Guam Daily Post versus Michael St. Nicholas. Okay, I was just about to start James W. Moylan. And what does that W stand for again, Real Joe Cruz?
Sir, woke, sir.
Woke. James Woke Moylan versus the coin toss. So James wants to do away with the primary election. And he's advanced some really good reasons. It would save a lot of money. And given the fact that we're all dealing with Wuhan virus, if people didn't have to come to the polls, that lessens the opportunity to be exposed to the Wuhan virus. And then I read a substitute bill yesterday, a substitute bill that James W. Moylan and Joe St. Augustine, who has a bill that would just moot out those races in the primary election for which there are no contests. Still have the election, but if there isn't a contest, then those races wouldn't appear on the ballot. So I was actually making up a story to illustrate a point. And my story is, James Woke Moylan and Joe St. Augustine put together a substitute bill. And the substitute bill, instead of having a primary, what they're going to do is just flip a coin for each contested race. Yeah, they're going to have Maria Pangilinan come over, and they're going to give her a silver dollar, and Maria will flip for each of the races. There'll be somebody there from Michael's office and somebody there from Robert's office, and Maria flips the coin, and somebody from Robert's office will say, heads. And if it's heads, then Michael's out. If it's tails, Michael's in and Robert's out. So we just flip coins. And think of the advantages. You cut the costs. I think it costs $200,000, $300,000 to have a primary election, but under the Moylan, San Nicolas, as were St. Augustine compromise, it would only cost $1 just for that one silver dollar. And nobody would have to go anywhere except Maria'd have to come down to the legislature, and people from the respective offices would have to come down. You could put it on TV. It would be fair. You know, it's pretty hard to rig a coin toss, right, Real Joe Cruz?
It's very hard, sir.
Yeah, there was a time.
50-50.
Yeah, I have seen things like two-headed nickels, but they're hard to come by. So it would be fair. It would save a lot of money. And it would greatly reduce the exposure to the Wuhan virus. So why don't we do that instead of having this primary election? And of course, I'm being where's that horn, Real Joe Cruz? Why don't we just flip coins instead of having a primary election? And of course, I'm being facetious here, but we should never trivialize an election. And I've posed it in this manner before. If it's a balancing test, which is what James Woke Moylan would have us believe, well, we balance how much it would cost, and we balance the exposure to the Wuhan virus against screwing around with an election after we already know who's running. So where does that balance go? Where does the fulcrum go? Do you have to have a really heavy weight on one end to have more weight than having the traditional election? Or will just a little bit of weight? And when should we engage in this balancing process? And I'll tell you what my answer is: never. We should never interfere with an election, a scheduled election, after we know who's running. Because people will sit around and wonder, who are we benefiting by gaming the system? And there are two theories. By not having the primary for the Washington race, you're benefiting Will Castro. Because when the Democrats go to the polls, they'll be split. And there's no race on the Republican side, so Castro's vote won't be split, right? I'm sorry, if we cancel the primary and all three go to the general election, the Democrat vote would be split between Underwood and San Nicolas, but the Republican vote wouldn't be split. So not having a primary would help Will San Nicolas. The other, the try theory is that not having a primary benefits Robert Underwood, who was employed by Joe San Augustine, by the way, just a coincidence, I'm sure, because the contested races on the mayor's side would cause people to vote Republican instead of Democrat. So my analysis is I don't know if those theories carry much weight or not. But I will say this, we shouldn't be talking about stuff like this after we know who the candidates are, because it just brings disrespect to the validity of the most important process that we have in our democratic society. We just shouldn't think about changing, it's kind of like we showed up for the basketball game, and, the standard basketball court, I think it's 94 feet long and maybe 40 feet wide. The baskets are 10 feet off the floor, right? Until we see the other team. And the other team is a 7 foot 6 inch center. Oh, hey, get the crew in here. We got to raise the baskets by 2 feet. They've got a tall center, right? Or they've got a good 3-point shooter. let's get out and erase that three-point shot line. We just won't count three-point shots anymore because they got a good three-point shooter. You don't do that. Once the game starts and you know who the players are, you don't change the rules. Yeah, and of course, you know, I can't say too much about Jim, you know, and his legislation after he came through with that bombshell bill for hate crimes. You know, here are the identity groups that Jim has identified in his hate crime. If a crime is motivated by any one of these words that I'm going to mention that identify various identity groups, the penalties are enhanced. He's got race, religion, color, ethnicity, physical, emotional, or developmental disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, political affiliation, hairstyle, national origin, job or occupation, or ancestry of another individual, right? So let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 different identity groups that James Woke Moylan has identified. So if you are able to fit yourself into any one of those identity groups, you should really vote for James W. Moylan because he's looking out for you. Yeah. Okay. So much for that. Next, we go to Chamorro, self-determination, and fear. And I started on this yesterday. This is something that ran in the Post on yesterday, and it's by Travis Wells. It's a pretty deep subject, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah, with the Senlagu Coalition. Julia Faye Munoz from Ihagan Famalaan, Guam. Dewey Huffer, Statehood for Guam. They're members of the Finogi Coalition. So I suppose when we mention that, we should stand up, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Sir, stand up, sir.
Yeah. You can. I'll tell you one thing, you know.
I don't know about that, sir.
I'll tell you one thing. Wells and Munoz and Huffer, they're all stand-up guys. Okay. So it's the title of this is Not to Be Feared, Chamorro Self-Determination and Decolonization. Well, I started right out yesterday and said, I have some fear here because I don't see the direction that this is going as being favorable to me. Believe it or not, I have self-interest. Okay, let's take a short break here, and then we'll come back 10 minutes later for the big halftime show.
Grab and win up to $500 with Budweiser from now until July. Pick up Bud Family and Limerita Family 12-packs, fill out the entry form inside, and place it in the drop box for your chance to win up to $500. Budweiser will be drawing winners weekly, so head to Current Guam on Facebook or Instagram to see if you're a lucky winner. Must be 21 to participate. See currentguam.com for rules, drop box locations, and more info. Budweiser reminds you to please drink responsibly.
Fire up the grill this Liberation Day because 76 Circle K is giving away a brand new freezer full of meats valued at over $700 to 3 lucky winners. All you got to do is purchase $25 or more of 76 fuel and you're entered to win. Fuel up now at 76 Circle K and get your chance to bring home a brand new freezer full of meat. Happy 76 Liberation Day, Guam. Must be 18 years or older to enter. Other conditions may apply. Circle K. Take it easy.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. In Agagna, they're open for dine-in, takeout, and delivery services from Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Call them now at 479-2652 and get your Mezcla fix today.
It's a grand old flag, Real Joe Cruz.
Yes, sir. It's a grand old party.
Grand old flag, grand old party. So I mentioned that, you know, I have some self-interest. I'd like to think that I can think globally, objectively. I can think in terms of a societal benefit, what's good for the island, what's not good for the island. But I also think of what's good for me. And I don't see this Chamorro determination movement as related to us by the stand-up gang here, the Finogi Coalition, and the other things that I see, like Laura Souder's approach to the whole thing, the brutality of the American government in the colony of Guam. None of this stuff sits very well with me. And, you know, I want to spend the rest of my life here. I've spent most of my life here already. I really like living here. I don't want to live anywhere else. I want to be a functioning part of this island as much as I possibly can. And I don't see that an independent Guam is in my interest. And if I were to be a little objective, try to be objective, I don't see that it's in anybody's interest, except those who are moving that direction to foster their own personal self-interest. Now, I've made some, I've drawn some ties to, you know, the identity politics aspect of the Chamorro independence movement. And when you get into identity politics, you're right there at cultural Marxism. So I don't have any proof that the people who are turning the crank on the Guam independence movement are cultural Marxists, but certainly some of the signs are there, and I can't ignore them. So I don't want to be living in the People's Republic, People's Socialist Republic of Guam when Guam becomes independent. And I've mentioned more than one time, Guam is part of the American empire, which is the greatest empire that the world has ever seen, probably the greatest empire the world will ever see, a place, a country that has done more for the individual rights of its citizens, and not even citizens, people living within its borders, than any place else in the history of the world. So I don't like the idea of changing a game. We're back to games again. Don't change a winning game. We've got something that's really working for us, so we should stay in the American empire and do our best to improve our position in the American empire. Not saying, well, you know, there were some historical wrongs that go back 400 years, therefore Guam should be independent. I don't see the logic in that, nor do I see the practicality. And when I read stuff like this, if I were unsure, it really tips the scales for me. So let me start on this article again. The Finogi Coalition, a network of 37 different nonprofits, organizations, student associations, and businesses, was formed this year to help provide accurate information. Now let's try a string around that word. Accurate information on issues regarding self-determination and decolonization. Now when they're talking decolonization, they're not talking about me. They're talking about self-determination of, quote, the Chamorro people, however that would be defined. So the government of Guam is not working towards decolonization, no matter how many times you hear that word. Because colonization means this: Guam is a colony of the United States. I am living in a colony. If Guam is decolonized, it will affect me just like everybody else that lives here. And all things being equal, it'll affect us all the same way. But that's not what that commission is talking about. It's Chamorro self-determination. So the Finogi guys are talking about accurate information on issues regarding self-determination and decolonization and help the community understand the importance of this issue. The coalition plans to hold candidate forums and other activities to elevate public dialogue during the 2020 campaign season. There is a great amount of distortion in the media and community about terms like Chamorro self-determination or decolonization. Now, there's distortion right there, real Joe Cruz. Two terms. Chamorro self-determination is one term. Decolonization is the other term. They're not the same thing. So if you have two terms that are not the same in a sentence, you connect them with and, not or. But that's not how the sentence reads. Chamorro self-determination or decolonization. So they want to avoid distortion, and they're doing it in that very sentence. The Finogi Coalition hopes to help address these misconceptions and fill in the gaps in knowledge. For example, contrary to what one might read in the news or hear on the radio, the recent end of the Davis case did not end this movement or even fundamentally alter its trajectory. Now, here we go. In fact, while the Ninth Circuit Court did affirm the local district court's ruling on the Davis case, it also took great pains to clarify that their decision did not speak to whether or not it was appropriate to seek justice or some resolution to the long-standing issues that have impacted the Chamorro people. Okay, so we're talking about the Ninth Circuit decision in Davis versus Government of Guam. And I'm going to read this sentence again. Mark it carefully. The Ninth Circuit took great pains to clarify that their decision, well, it's probably good that I come back to this after the halftime break, because this is really important.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Reacting to the rulings. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The U.S. Supreme Court Thursday ruling in two cases about President Trump's taxes. In one, that he is not immune to a New York subpoena, and in the other, that congressional committees cannot yet access his tax returns, sending both cases back to the lower courts for further arguments. The president telling Fox's Hannity,
I was disappointed, and at the same time, it was because I think a president should get protection from thousands of prosecutors out there, thousands all over the country.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says they will return to the federal appeals court to push for the president's tax returns, although that's unlikely to happen before November. On other issues, the president telling Hannity he is alarmed by rising violence in several cities, including New York and Chicago, and says the federal government is ready to act if necessary. And reacting to Joe Biden's economic plan, saying the former vice president has been brainwashed by the radical left. Joe Biden traveled to his boyhood home in northeastern Pennsylvania Thursday to unveil that plan.
President Trump talked a lot about bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. and buying American. Former Vice President Joe Biden says the difference is he'll make it happen.
Folks, it's not sufficient to build back. We have to build back better.
He talked about investing billions in research and development into technology, modernizing infrastructure, replenishing stockpiles, and spending federal tax dollars to buy American.
I do not accept a defeatist view that forecasted automation and globalization mean we can't keep well-paid jobs here in America.
He did say he would raise the corporate tax rate back up to 28%.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Asian stock markets closing Friday lower, down more than 2% in Hong Kong. Wall Street Thursday, the Dow and the S&P 500 closed lower, but the Nasdaq closed at another record high. Dow futures are down more than 250 points. America is listening to Fox News.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont or call 646-1463.
Grab and win up to $500 with Budweiser from now until July. Pick up Bud Family and Limerita Family 12-packs, fill out the entry form inside, and place it in the drop box for your chance to win up to $500. Budweiser will be drawing winners weekly, so head to Current Guam on Facebook or Instagram to see if you're a lucky winner. Must be 21 to participate. See currentguam.com for rules, drop box locations, and more info. Budweiser reminds you to please drink responsibly.
2 police officers have been shot and wounded in Reno, Texas. While responding to a domestic dispute call, both are expected to survive. The suspect barricaded in a home reported to be on fire. The prosecutor in Salt Lake City, Utah, ruling he will not file charges against 2 police officers who shot and killed a robbery suspect who was running from them back in May.
We believe that it meets the statutory elements of a justified use of deadly force.
That's District Attorney Sim Gill, but the attorney for the family of Bernardo Palacios Carbajal says he was running because he was afraid of the cops.
The officer's unlawful, senseless, and deeply disturbing decision to continue shooting Bernardo cannot be permitted in our society, regardless of the wrongs a person is accused of.
And attorney Nathan Morris says the family plans to sue. A judge in Minnesota has imposed a gag order on the attorneys in the trial of 4 former Minneapolis police officers charged in the death of George Floyd, saying continuing pre-trial publicity could taint a potential jury pool. With nuclear talks stalled, it appears that North Korea is building up its nuclear weapons capability.
Experts say satellite images show a previously undeclared site in North Korea called Wallo-ri near Pyongyang, where nuclear warheads are believed to be assembled and stored. Analysts point to high security, probable underground facilities, and a lot of activity. Atomic warheads ready to be mounted on intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of targeting the U.S. Despite high-level diplomacy involving President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, the fear is the North has continued to build up an arsenal of nuclear weapons and missiles. Chairman Kim recently declared he would expand his nuclear war deterrent, and his government has rejected the idea of another summit with the U.S. The president this week said he was still willing to talk. So did Secretary of State Pompeo.
That's Fox's Greg Palcott. And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Fire up the grill this Liberation Day, because 76 Circle K is giving away a brand new freezer full of meats valued at over $700 to 3 lucky winners. All you got to do is purchase $25 or more of 76 fuel and you're entered to win. Fuel up now at 76 Circle K and get your chance to bring home a brand new freezer full of meat. Happy 76 Liberation Day, Guam. Must be 18 years or older to enter. Other conditions may apply. Circle K, take it easy.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña is taking your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair. Mezcla is ready to serve you and your family for your dine-in experience and takeout services. To ensure everyone's safety and comfort, Team Mezcla has taken further steps in maintaining a clean and sanitized area for you and your family while dining in. For more information, please call 479-2652 or 479-2653. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
So here we are again after enjoying that big halftime show that we've all come to know and love so much. We finished the halftime show. That means we're now in the second half of Tall Tales, meaning we've got less than an hour to go to finish up the Real Joe Cruise and my least favorite day of the week. We do not like Fridays, because when it's Friday, that means no Tall Tales tomorrow. No Tall Tales on Sunday. You know, by Monday morning, the withdrawal sickness is so severe. And we're just counting the minutes until 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon so we can get back in the saddle and start doing Tall Tales again.
No, sir, you can help with that withdrawal.
Yeah.
There's ways to do that over the weekend by watching older episodes on YouTube and Facebook Live. They can look back.
That's true. Yeah, you can. For those out there in the international radio listening audience who probably suffer just about as much as the Real Joe Cruise and I do, you could go to Facebook or YouTube. You go to YouTube and just type in Bob Klitzkie in the search bar, and you can see a plethora of old episodes of Tall Tales. And you go to Facebook and go to The Point, right, Real Joe Cruise?
Yes, sir.
And you kind of got to look. You got to click on videos and look around a little bit, right?
You'll see like yours raised.
Yeah, they're all there. You know, someday someone will syndicate the whole thing, and there'll be probably a show on network TV called The Best of Tall Tales. Yeah. Okay, so before the break, I was talking about Chamorro self-determination and fear. And this article, Not to be Feared, Chamorro Self-Determination and Decolonization. And I left off with this Finogi group is talking about cluing people in on what these terms really mean. And they're saying there's a great amount of distortion in the media and the community about terms like Chamorro self-determination or decolonization. The Finogi Coalition hopes to help address these misconceptions and fill the gaps in knowledge. For example, contrary to what one might read in the news or hear on the radio, the recent end of the Davis case did not end this movement or even fundamentally alter its trajectory. It didn't alter its trajectory. It was on a glide path to nowhere before, and it's still on that same trajectory, I hope. Okay, and then they go on to say, in fact, while the Ninth Circuit Court did affirm the local district court's ruling on the Davis case, it also took great pains to clarify that their decision did not speak to whether or not it was appropriate to seek judgment, as you were, seek justice, or some resolution to the long-standing issues that have impacted the Chamorro people. So the Ninth Circuit said, you know, it may very well be appropriate for you to seek justice or some resolution to the long-standing issues that have impacted the Chamorro people. That's what the Ninth Circuit said. How do I know that? That's because that's what Travis Wells, Julia Fay Munoz, and Dewey Huffer said the Ninth Circuit said. Well, guess what? It's been a while since I read the Davis case, so I went back and read it again, and this is what I found in the last paragraph of the decision. Concluding that the 2000 plebiscite law employs a proxy for race is not to equate Guam's stated purpose of providing dignity, allowing a starting point for a process of self-determination. It's not that. To its native inhabitants with the racial animus motivating other laws that ran afoul of the 15th Amendment. Then, Our decision makes no judgment about whether Guam's targeted interest in the self-determination of its indigenous people is genuine or compelling. Let me read that. It's a long sentence. I know it's hard to follow. But compare that with what the Finogi people said, the Ninth Circuit said. And this is what the Ninth Circuit actually said. Our decision makes no judgment about whether Guam's targeted interest in the self-determination of its indigenous people is genuine or compelling. That's it. One sentence. And it's a sentence that really almost doesn't say anything. However, the Finogi folks said, in fact, well, the Ninth Circuit did affirm the local court's ruling on the Davis case. It also took great pains to clarify that their decision did not speak to whether or not it was appropriate to seek justice or some resolution to the long-standing issues that have impacted the Chamorro people. Now, how much trust do you put in people who come along and say, we're out here to address misconceptions? You know, and then they come up with a whopper like this one. Now, I also called them out on this, connecting self-determination and decolonization with or instead of and, because they're totally different things. But then to come up with a whopper like this and say, not to be feared, Chamorro self-determination and decolonization. Yeah, right. You know, just one like this and your credibility is shot. Going on. And then they go back and they comment on that sentence, on their sentence. It was a reminder that even within the problematic maze of federal territorial legal precedents that often disempower territories, the cause of Chamorro self-determination could still be considered just. Well, let me read that sentence again. Could still be considered just. Our decision makes no judgment about whether Guam's targeted interest in the self-determination of its indigenous people is genuine or compelling. Boy, talking about reading something into a short sentence. The only word that I would pull out of there and perhaps incorporate, if I were these guys, and incorporate into my propaganda, there's one really key word that the Ninth Circuit used. Did you pick it up, Real Joe Cruz?
No, I didn't, sir.
Yeah, well, let me see if you can catch it this time around. Targeted interest in the self-determination of its indigenous people is genuine or compelling.
I get it, sir.
Yeah. Any time that you have to explain something and you could use the word genuine, your credibility increases tenfold. Yeah. And then they go on to say, this is why Chamorro self-determination is not a narrow or meaningless issue. It is an issue that goes to the heart of our island's community. It is built on the premise that Chamorro people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect in their own islands. I talked about this yesterday. I don't know how you can treat someone with dignity. Dignity is a noun. Let me dignity you, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah. So a person can have dignity. He could be recognized for his dignity, but I don't know how you would treat someone with dignity. And then the word respect, of course, is so overused anymore that it hardly has any meaning. We talked a little bit yesterday that, as I understand the word respect, it's another way of saying politeness. Be respectful to your elders. Be polite to your elders. Respect other people's opinions. Be polite to other people who have other opinions. So I notice I've got a really important caller on the phone here who may be telling us that the Wuhan virus panic is over. So I'm going to stop what I'm doing and I'm going to take this really important phone call, which perhaps gives us critical information about the Wuhan virus. Good afternoon, Dr. Akimoto.
Dr. Kasperbauer, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. I just referred to you as Dr. Kasperbauer, but I'm very happy that you let me on the phone. So
well,
quickly.
You know, Kasperbauer, Klitzkie, we all look alike.
No. Happy Friday, sir, and indeed, maybe this is the beginning of what some would say would be the end of the Wuhan virus, which came out of China earlier this year and really did cause the world to stop in its tracks, and our economy has ground to a halt, and it's attempting to, I think, inflict a new world order. I think based on best information we have in front of us, that Guam's ability to mimic more Singapore, Thailand, South Korea, Taiwan, I meant, and other Asian countries which had prepared themselves for diseases like the COVID-19 virus, were able to reopen our economy in a much more sensible way, using a lot of these new, cumbersome public health techniques to minimize death and suffering. But I do think we're headed towards a reopening of our economy very soon. And it probably can't come soon enough for folks like Mr. Gutierrez and those that are interested in welcoming the tourists back to Guam. And I think, yeah, this week of zeros, where we are not seeing a whole lot of positives in terms of the testing, which is amazing because there's a lot of testing going on. And there have been 0 deaths for many, many weeks now. So maybe you're right. This is the end of the Wuhan virus, the beginning of a new normal.
Well, I hope so, Doc.
The issue really becomes then the reality. It's almost like when the tide goes out and you can see what's really lying underneath all the water. And the realization that we apparently do have a large number, 5,000 non-essential government employees that are not needed when we have to face a situation like this. And certainly there's going to have to be more scrutiny paid, but shame on the Guam legislature. They just went through a budget process where they should have discussed these issues, but instead I think a lot of them stood up and tried to posture that they were looking out for the best interests of employees who wanted to be paid double time to do their jobs. And, you know, again, no one's talking about the people that got paid to do nothing, or actually you are, but a lot of people kind of thought that that was going to magically continue to be possible. But I think going into this weekend, we'd like to prescribe and ask people to stop thinking of this virus as an excuse not to work, and stop thinking of this virus as a reason why everybody should just stay home and barbecue until, you know, I guess the cows come home. And then when the cows come home, I guess we're going to barbecue them too. There has to be a return to work. And I think there are a lot of people that have been working the whole time, and especially the folks at Public Health. But in the clinics, we're just getting a ridiculous amount of people coming in here asking us for work excuses so that they can continue to stay home because they're scared. Now, of course, we'd love to deal with people's anxieties, and so I'm referring a lot of people to mental health. But, you know, when it comes down to it, they just don't want to work. And I'm sorry to be so blunt about it, but actually I'm not sorry. This is I'm going to lay this on the fault of our leadership. They seem to be cultivating a culture of learned helplessness. They're letting people slide into this welfare mentality where they think the government can magically pay them to do nothing. And Dr. Klitzkie, what are you going to do about it?
Well, the real Joe Cruz and I are going to continue to beat that same old drum, that we're looking for an efficient, effective government that operating within the rule of law that provides basic government services on at least a break-even basis. And
I have this picture I have this picture of Don Quixote and Sancho Panza. What is his name? Sancho
Panza, yeah. Uh-huh.
Not Ponzi.
Panza, yeah.
We should sing a song. There's a song, Man from La Mancha.
Right.
Something like that. But, okay, you're going to do that. I hope it works, but I was hoping for a little more sense of urgency. But, okay. At least you let me rant. I feel a whole lot better now.
Well, I'm sure my international radio listening audience feels a lot better, too, having had the opportunity to listen to you and your workup on the Wuhan virus, Doc.
Right. I think the thing is dead, and we now need to return to work carefully, but knowing that if we don't work, we don't eat. That's the way it's supposed to be, and it's biblically prescribed. So
exactly,
everybody get back to work.
Right on.
Have a good day, sir.
Thanks for calling, Doc. Okay, so here we are, 5:22, and you finally opened up the Joe line, apparently, huh? As I did, sir. I have another Joe on the line. Good afternoon, another Joe.
Yeah, Bob, I agree with that previous caller. You don't work, you can't eat. Not only that, you don't work, you can't stay active. You don't stay healthy, you get sick. You get just as bad health as whether it be the Wuhan Corona-19 virus or any other type of flu.
Well, what I always say, real Joe, what I always say, another Joe, is that it's better to wear out than to rust out.
There you go. But as long as you don't burn out, right?
There you go.
but just regular maintaining. If you do that in your car, you can expect it's going to give you good transportation for 20, maybe 30 years, maybe more, depending on the type of car and how well you keep it. And you keep replacing the old parts that get worn down. But the other thing,
something, another Joe, the car I'm driving right now is 28 years old.
Wow.
And it still runs like a well-oiled Swiss watch.
Is it American made or Japan made?
Of course, it's Japanese. Naturally, yeah. It's still running.
Well, that's good. So the other thing is that when we need, like the previous caller said, we need to carefully open up. People need to get more active into their own pace, So people need to. It's like blowing off steam, Healthy people need to stretch your legs. They need to move around. They don't become lethargic. They don't become. I can't think of the word, but all these words that mean you're not moving around. You don't have the blood flow. And at the very least, whether it a little bit of improvement in the economy, economic stimulus, a big improvement on personal morale and health. You just need to practice. Practice makes perfect. With social distancing, people who want to the personal protection equipment, contact tracing. We probably have to emphasize that contact tracing and keep track of if someone gets sick, where they come from, who they come in contact with, that sort of thing. This is not impossible, Bob. It's just going back to the old days where people were a little bit more nosy, keeping track of each other and but respectful. But I'm hoping that people show up to that public hearing next week and have your mindset and we have a pretty good dialogue and discussion there. But thanks for your time, Uncle Bob. I'll just I'll listen to other callers.
Okay, another Joe. So it's always good to hear from you. Thanks for calling. Okay, so that was another Joe who wanted to talk about the Wuhan virus. We kind of deviated for a minute. I was talking about why we shouldn't be afraid of Chamorro self-determination and decolonization. Not. And I'm reading this story here by the Finogi Group, and I already set the record straight on what the Ninth Circuit actually said compared to what these guys say it said. And then this is why Chamorro self-determination is not a narrow or meaningless issue. It's an issue that goes to the heart of our island's community. It's built on the premise that the Chamorro people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect in their own islands. So, you know, I have an aversion to this kind of language, this kind of self-serving, non-contradictory virtue-seeking, you know. And what we're saying here, first of all, the word dignity is misplaced. And then second, it sort of suggests something that is not reality. Did anyone say that people on Guam, Chamorros shouldn't be respected? I don't recall anybody saying that. I haven't heard anybody on the island say, you know, what we ought to do, every time you see a Chamorro, diss him. Yeah, Chamorros need to be dissed. Is that the way it works, Real Joe Cruz?
No, sir.
Has that ever happened to you?
No, sir.
Have you ever heard anybody say it?
No, sir.
Yeah. Do you think maybe somebody just kind of made this up?
I'll plead the fifth on that one, sir.
Yeah, so Chamorro people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect in their own islands. Now, this is another trap for the unwary. In their own islands. So, Real Joe Cruz, do you own an island?
I do, sir.
Which island do you own?
That little one outside Lupan Cove. In front of Jimmy D's.
Alapod Island?
Yeah.
Hey, that's cool.
But I haven't had it checked by security title, so I'm not sure if I actually own what I bought.
That's very true. Yeah, good point. How can you be sure that the land that you bought is really yours? How do you do that?
You have to go to security title, sir.
Security title?
They know what they're doing there.
Yeah.
That's a complex real estate transaction.
Yeah, it is.
On island.
Now, if you go to security title, everybody will know why you went there, right?
Yes. Oh, no.
No.
They're very confidential, sir.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Over at security
They
title.
have the highest standards of confidentiality.
I see. So you're really not sure if you own Alapod Island or not, right?
I'm not sure, sir, but I think I do.
Yeah, but you haven't gotten a word from security title.
No, sir.
And if you had, you wouldn't be able to talk about it anyhow, right?
True, sir.
Yeah. So Chamorro people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect in their own islands, right? Now, I know that there are some Chamorros that own large chunks of Guam. I don't want to mention any names, but their initials are Calvo. And there are others that own large chunks of Guam, but I don't think anybody owns the whole island. That would be a pretty good-sized chunk of land. Now, I own a couple pieces of it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And my wife owns one piece all by herself that she lets me go on. Yeah, she gives me permission.
That's nice, sir.
Yeah. But the fact that I own a couple pieces of land doesn't mean that I'm entitled to any particular kind of respect. In fact, sometimes the way the show goes here, I'm wondering if I'm entitled to any respect at all. Like Rodney, remember Rodney Dangerfield?
I get no respect, I tell you.
I don't get no respect. Okay. So here we are coming up on the 7th inning stretch.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his smile team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his smile team.
They make smiles happen.
At the mall, as you enjoy your shopping, dining, or entertainment, you could also win 3 great cars from Atkins Kroll. and thousands of prizes in Micronesia Mall's Cars, Prizes, and Getaways game. Present your mall receipts and have a chance to win the third car, the head-turning Lexus ES350 Luxury. Getaways to Manila, courtesy of Philippine Airlines, plus prizes from Foot Locker and Burger King. Mark your calendar. Drawing date moved to August 22nd, 2020. It's Micronesia Mall's Cars, Prizes, and Getaways game.
So here we are, Wrigley Field, Chicago, 7th inning stretch. And we go from the 7th inning stretch straight to Keith. Good afternoon, Keith.
Good afternoon, Bob. I was wanting to talk to you've been on this subject for a couple of days, but I have been working later hours. I would like to put a question to either yourself or one of the enlightened souls of the Finogi Go group. Actually, I think it's the Finogi movement. It certainly smells like a movement. What's the difference between what they want and white separatists? I mean, white separatists are bad, but is this not Chamorro separatists? So why is one good and one bad?
Well, I think I talked about this the other day, you know, that we all agree that racism is bad, right? Racism is not a good thing. And then I defined, I confess that I used to know what a lot of words meant, but it's gotten so much harder lately. Like, for instance, the word they. I used to know that that meant two or more people, right? But that's not what it means anymore. So it used to be such a simple word, but now I never know what it means. And then the other one is racism, because racism, once upon a time, had two elements, prejudice and discrimination. Prejudice meaning that you develop stereotypes for various races based on their race. Well, he's a so-and-so, he's a Martian, and therefore he's dishonest. Or he's a Jupiterian, therefore he's lazy. So you develop these stereotypes, and then based on these stereotypes, you discriminate against people based on race. That's what racism used to mean. Nowadays, what it means is not saying politically correct things with respect to race in general, the real lives, Black Lives Matter in particular. So if you don't say the right thing, then you are a racist. As an example, if someone said, you know, Black Lives Matter, and you are so unwoke that you say, yeah, I agree, all lives matter, you are a racist because you didn't go along with the word of the day. That's what it used to mean. But going back to the original meaning, yeah, a lot of what I hear as far as Chamorro separatism fits into the category of ethnocentrism, xenophobia, and racism. Because if you don't belong to a particular race, then this is not your island. And because it's not your island, then your situation is inferior to those to whom it is the island. Right, Keith?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I frankly would lump the whole bunch and the lady who wrote the article as your simple garden variety racists. The only difference is they get to hide behind quaint euphemisms and, I hate to say it, but minority status, since I think it's well established now that only whites can be racist.
Yeah.
Well, not only whites, but the things white. I mean, I read just yesterday that now milk and crosswalks are racist. So apparently the definition is ever expanding.
The other day, Keith, real Joe Cruz and I were talking about white goods, you know, refrigerators and stuff like that.
And the whites fail.
So there are a lot of white goods out in the boonies, and Real Joe Cruz thought that this was racist. So we need to have a statute that you have to paint a washing machine or a refrigerator black before you junk it in the boonies. Otherwise, you're a racist.
And, taking what you said about, I just lost my train of thought. That this group, seems to separate themselves as having preferential ownership of the island because and segregating out based upon their race or ethnicity. I would also love to hear their input on how the mainland people on the mainland are dealing with and viewing illegal aliens, because I'd be willing to bet dimes to donuts that they are in support of the illegal aliens, which to me would then pose a contradiction.
True enough.
Okay, just wanted to share some thoughts.
Well, I'm glad you called, Keith. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're a listener.
Thanks, Bob. Take care.
So long. Yeah, so, you go through all of that racism and what it is and what it isn't, and when you get to the end of it, you would be told, oh, yeah, but it's not racism if it's about Chamorros. That would be the exception, right? Okay, so back to this article here. A central part of this issue is to give the people most impacted by Guam's colonial history a chance to express what they would want for the future. This is standard practice around the world and throughout history by decolonizing nations large and small. It is a process of self-determination whereby those who have long been denied a voice in the destiny of their own lands are given a chance to voice their political aspirations. For example, Great Britain and France relinquished sovereignty over many colonies: Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Morocco, and Cambodia, to name a few. Well, here we go again. Morocco was never a French colony, except in the minds of the Finogi group here. So, if they don't get this stuff right, then how credible are they? How much credibility should we assign to them? And so let's take this sentence at face value. For example, Great Britain and France relinquished sovereignty over many colonies. Let's ask this then. Let's say that this Finogi group goes to Congress and lays out these incredibly persuasive arguments that we've seen here. And our delegate in Congress introduces a bill that says effective midnight on December 31, 2020, the United States withdraws all claims to Guam and ends its sovereignty over Guam. Let's say that happened. What happens on January 1? If we're going to talk about this stuff, that's the kind of stuff I want to talk about. I don't want to hear this tired old song, first it was the Spanish, and then the Navy, and then the Japanese, etc. All of which is true, none of which any of us have any ability to modify or change. What happened has happened. It's called history. So instead of looking back, I want to look forward. So if Guam became independent, then what? Would it be the Socialist Republic of Guahan? Would we just stick with what we have here, the same Organic Act, the same body of laws, until the legislature changed it? What would happen to people who are not part of that favored group, Chamorros? What the French called Pieds-Noirs when Algeria was decolonized. What happens to them? Would there be a mass exodus? Would people be forced out? What would their disposition be? That's the kind of stuff I want to talk about, especially when you take into consideration that, what is it, 38, 39% of the island is actually Chamorro, and everybody else is not Chamorro. So what happens to those folks? Do they become sort of like habitual residents in the socialist republic? If we're not going to talk about things like this, then what is it that we're actually talking about other than trotting out the grievance politics based on what the Spanish did and the United States, according to what's her name, Laura Souder, the United States Raj in Guam has been brutal. It's a brutal fact. So, given all of these things, you know, I'm not cheered up by someone saying that Chamorro self-determination and colonization are not to be feared. But let me find out what our Fred's take is on the whole thing. Good afternoon, our Fred.
Hey, Bob. Good afternoon. Love your topic today.
Well, thank you, our Fred.
Shed some. Your perspective is right, and maybe I can shed some light on it too. I think we'll have to change that slogan if this happens from the where America's Day begins, because it won't be that anymore. If we're down the track we want to go, and I still, after COVID-19 and all the issues the island has gone through and the residents have gone through, I don't know why we're still on this, that the movement to decolonize or separate ourselves from the U.S. Because I think, if anything, this COVID-19 pandemic until now has shown us how much we need the USA and Uncle Sam. So I still don't understand why. There's only, I think, a certain few members or a group, which a good group named Separatists we can use, that want to decolonize. What's the word? Genuinely don't believe that the majority of the island wants to really separate from the United States or decolonize. But of course, a small group is going to give that impression that the whole island wants to decolonize. But yeah, a few members of Guam are only showing that that the island wants to do that, but they don't. But you're right, we will have an exodus. People will leave. I mean, what's going to become of Guam will turn into a Saipan pretty much. We'll pretty much go back 30 years. Because under the U.S. flag is why investors and you see businesses and investors come in and open, and all these hotels and Don Donkey coming, and all the big brand names and franchises that come here. It's only because of the U.S. flag and because of that slogan where America's Day begins. So I think we really need to value that and step back and take a look at what we've got going versus what we will have gone. So that's my take on it. And we need to stop this talk on this, because we're fine. Guam is fine the way it is. We're getting loads of money from Uncle Sam, and that U.S. flag is benefiting us. So it's a good thing.
Well, I certainly agree, our Fred.
That's my take, Bob, and you can elaborate on it.
I'll do that, our Fred.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you for calling, our Fred.
All right. Okay.
Our Fred makes some really good points. If if you're a corporation and you want to invest money, you don't want to invest it in some country where the ink is hardly dry on the papers that you use to bring the money to the country when that country decides we're going to expropriate that. Okay, well, about home stretch time here, so take a short break for the home stretch.
Fire up the grill this Liberation Day, because 76 Circle K is giving away a brand new freezer full of meats valued at over $700 to 3 lucky winners. All you got to do is purchase $25 or more of 76 fuel and you're entered to win. Fuel up now at 76 Circle K and get your chance to bring home a brand new freezer full of meat. Happy 76 Liberation Day, Guam. Must be 18 years or older to enter. Other conditions may apply. Circle K, take it easy.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Okay, so here we are, the home stretch. Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, heading down the home stretch here on our least favorite day of the week. And when I look around out on the racetrack, who do I see trotting around out there? None other than our Carl. Good afternoon, our Carl. Good afternoon again, our Carl.
Yeah, second right. Yeah, I just would like to comment a little bit about the core motivations for this desire to become independent. I'm not saying this is true for the ordinary people, you know, the true believers in the bulk. I'm saying this is true of the core leadership. It's not so much how the common people are going to be affected. That's only of concern up front when the utopian social justice vision is being sold to people. But, you know, we see time after time after time that once leftist leaders come to power, no matter how bad it gets, it really doesn't matter. What matters is how the elites are doing and how their egos are being massaged. And I remember seeing a post many months ago for someone it was a student that was for this separatist movement, you know, on Guam, and it was a comment on a UN a story about the UN and something to do with Guam dealing with the UN, and this young person commented that he could just imagine Guam's flag finally there, joining all the other nations. And I think that is part of the appeal of this thing, is that pride of having, you know, among the elites, of being a member of this UN community, going to, you know, all the five-star hotels, the conferences, and you know, because today, if a leader or an elected official from Guam is asked, you know, what do you do? I'm you know, such and such from Guam, you know, a U.S. territory. That's not really. It doesn't have much sex appeal. But when you say, oh, I'm from the nation of Guam, we're a member of the UN, you know, it has more appeal and more flash. So I think there is part of that, you know, this among the elites who want this done is that the constitutional constraints would be done away with, so they'd be able to fashion a government which gives them more power, and there would be more pizzazz. You know, when they're you could have all kinds of titles, and you know, who knows what would evolve out of it. But I think a lot of it has to do with the with egos, you know, and we see, you know, in so many places that even in Africa, you know, which went through the phase of decolonization for a period, and many of those countries went leftist and socialist, and the people just suffered tremendously, just terribly. But the leaders didn't care, you know. They didn't care about the civil wars, the slaughters, the murders, the starvation, the killings, nothing. None of them ever relinquished power. But the elites did fantastically well. I mean, they raided the treasury and siphoned off millions and billions of dollars into private accounts. And the common people who were all excited about this, you know, this word, you know, sovereignty and all this stuff, they were just, and in many cases in Africa, it's still the case. They still live in misery.
Yeah, Robert Mugabe, for instance, took over what had been southern Rhodesia, which had been a relatively prosperous country, and he turned it into Zimbabwe, which is one of those countries that Donald Trump described with a word that begins with S. And it didn't take him long.
Yeah, and of course there's the infamous mass murderer Idi Amin, and his murders he did of fellow Africans in his country. I don't know if he was Uganda, or I think it was Uganda, where he perpetrated his slaughters on his own people. And, you know, people listening might say, well, is that what you're saying is going to happen? And no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, you know, Professor E.J. Rummel, working out of University of Hawaii, he did extensive studies on a phenomenon called democide, the slaughter of people by their own government. And on his, if you look up democide, if you Google that, it'll take you to some links. But the bottom line he came to after reading thousands of documents on thousands of incidents of democide, his bottom line he came to is that the concentration of power is the most dangerous thing on earth. And the bottom line figure he came to of the slaughters in the 20th century was 262 million people killed by their own government. And if you Google that word and click on the link for his website out of University of Hawaii, it'll show a breakdown per country. And I believe China was 62 million. And I put a lot of credence in Professor Rummel's figures because he actually did a lot of research and reading of a lot of accounts of slaughters, and it's really terrifying. So we don't know, you know, what will happen, what will be unleashed. It may be just bad, it may be horrible, you know, it may be brutal, but we don't know. But in any case, concentration of power results in bad things on a scale, you know, a sliding scale. Who knows? Do we really want to find out? I don't. Anyway, Bob, I'll be setting my clock for a countdown for Monday afternoon at 3:59 and 59 seconds. And you have a great weekend.
Okay, we'll endure, R. Carl. Thanks for calling.
All right, boy.
Okay, so I got about 4 more minutes here. I'm going to work a little bit more with the Finogi group here. And it says that, let's see, Chamorro self-determination is the first step towards decolonization. The first step, okay? So once again, let's hypothesize. Let's say that we have some kind of a vote Let's take two alternatives. We have a vote. We only allow Chamorros to vote. And when the votes are counted, and there are only two questions on the ballot. Should Guam separate from the United States and become an independent country? Yes or no? And if 70% say no, we want to stay with the United States, what do we do then? Is that self-determination? Oh, no, it's not self-determination because it's not decolonization. Oh, what does decolonization mean? It means you have to separate from the mother country. I see. So then the other alternative is 70% of the people say, yeah, 70% of Chamorros want to step away from the United States. Then what happens? What happens next? Do we round up all the non-Chamorros and put them in some sort of a camp? Do we just go on like we've been going on? I haven't heard anybody address that at all. You know, we want decolonization. And then what? Yeah, decolonization. Many in the community recall when hearing the word, quote, decolonization, associating it with many negative things and primarily with an isolating independence from the world. This is not true. The Finogi Coalition plans to join other education efforts in the community to bring about more awareness of this issue so that more people realize there is little to fear from decolonization. So you didn't tell us why. Many people in the community recoil when they hearing the word decolonization, associating it with negative things and primarily with an isolating independence from the world. Okay, I'm gonna have to spend a couple more days on this. So the real Joe Cruz and I are gonna tough it out. We're tough guys. We'll somehow make it. We'll be back Monday afternoons, 1600. 4 o'clock in the afternoon for another whole week of tall tales. We'll see you then.